did not realize how mature it was going to be, because at first, like, it takes a while for Daphne and Simon.
For a while. There's a courtship period, you know? You've got to buy a lady drink first.
But as soon as Simon explains to Daphne the concept of masturbation, it just all goes in a different direction.
Just a blow out, by the way.
So I wanted to ask you about that part, because it's very romantic. It's not handled in like a gratuitous fashion, and it's lovely to see them so in love and everything. But in terms of that time and everything, like, to literally find out Daphne has like no idea about any of this, which makes sense, I guess, because if no one told a young lady about that at that time, she wouldn't know how babies are made. Like.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the things that we explore, the fact that who would tell you. Also, sorry, I'm suddenly lost my video feed again. I think I'm good. You're back. Very much the idea of kind of who would tell you about these things, and about kind of discovering yourself in the very visceral ways that Daphne and myself do. And learning kind of what independence you can find from that, how to own yourself and your sexuality, and how that intersects with romance, and how they are not the same thing, but they are adjacent, and they interact in all kinds of difficult, wonderful, sexy, fantastic ways.
We get into like the stereotypes of the time with the fact that they kissed before marriage, and the fact that it was seen by someone who could out them and ruin Daphne, even though they then like fast tracked the wedding. That's crazy that like she'd be ruined and the Bridgerton family would be ruined. And so I wanted to ask you about that time, because along with like exploring sexuality, we're exploring like how rigid that was, that this girl who just like got a kiss with a boy, they were like in the garden, and that would ruin her even if she married this man, if someone found out.
I mean, absolutely. We're dealing with a time period where people are very repressed, and we like to think that they're a lot less liberal and less evolved than we are now. But that's not necessarily the case, because again, as you said, she would be condemned for this indiscretion of a kiss before marriage, whereas the men are constantly praised for being rakes and for their exploits and for sowing their wild oats. And so there are times when you really need to look at the reflections of what we deal with in a contemporary sense, and see how much has in fact changed and how much really hasn't, and what there is still to be learned from that. Because we're still not dealing with gender equality in that sense at all. And finding out ways to liberate yourself from sexual shame and be able to own your own sexuality, both as a man and a woman, despite whatever oppression society is putting you under, be that in the 19th century or the 21st, we're kind of drawing those lines and those parallels, and hopefully it means that everyone's got something to take from it.
So we get very into Simon's backstory, and it's an important part of the show so that we understand this wild decision that he makes, which I call it that because, like, I'm on Daphne's side immediately that this is crazy, but I see his side after, like, seeing the trauma he went through and what his father did.
Yes, constantly. This was our Ross and Rachel. We were on a break. You know? Hey, he was straight up from the top. He was like, "Don't want babies, not going to happen." Yeah. You're the one that thought that was going to change. You know?
Oh, yeah. This is definitely going to be a "we were on a break" thing because of like the phrasing that they're both very particular about. She said, "You wouldn't." No, I thought you couldn't. And then he's like, "I thought you understood what that meant." Of course I didn't. I didn't know anything.
It wasn't a problem. No, I mean, for the record, Simon is absolutely squarely in the wrong. You don't get to deceive someone going into a marriage and then play out the whole kind of wood versus could situation. But you know, this is the nature of your dark, brooding, broken anti-hero. They are generally broken and wrong. And Simon's whole redemptive story is figuring out how essentially wrong he is and how he needs to stop being self-righteous, learn to love himself before he can give love to others. And then we have our big heroic romantic denouement. But until then, there is no hope for anyone until he can learn to love himself, until he can learn to be honest with those who offer him love, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the level of trauma he must have experienced to think that that was what he had to do, that like spiting someone who's dead, like not there to see what you're doing to them. Like the level that Simon must have had ingrained in him from all of those years of that. How did you explore that and not feel like it has to be taken seriously? Otherwise, you can't take Simon seriously throughout the season.
I mean, I don't know about your experience, but in my life, I've never encountered men with excessive amounts of pride who do unreasonable things to defend that. You know, I mean, this is not an uncommon situation. This is not something that doesn't need exploring and reflecting back. Because again, if we're not careful, this archetype of the dark, brooding, broken anti-hero gets held up on a pedestal for the wrong reasons, because the whole point is that this man is incredibly intelligent and generous and inventive, but all of that is locked away behind this prideful false strength that can only be expressed through spite and through dominance of others, even if it is something as, quite frankly, pathetic as someone who's already dead. Like, you're not winning a fight there, and quite frankly, there isn't a fight to be won. I think a lot of guys need to hear this. The fight that needs to be won is over that false pride before you can discover the vulnerability that allows you to unlock all the good stuff that does actually make you attractive, hopefully.
I want to go back to it's a big part of Bridgerton, the steamy scenes and shooting those with Phoebe because it looks very realistic, but we go into some stuff that's not often shown on screen, like male doing female oral sex. That's not as common as seeing the reverse screen. And it's he seems to be really good at it based on Daphne's expression. So I imagine you and Phoebe had to get very close very quickly to be able to shoot scenes where you're acting out.
Your euphemism game is non-existent. It's just the words. It's just, let's put it out there. We're talking oral sex, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, yeah, there's a level of closeness, but also we were very well rehearsed, very well choreographed. We were working with an intimacy coordinator, and quite frankly, I think it's absolutely insane that anyone ever did this work without one and never will again. It's a way of where everyone feels safe quite quickly because you are working professionally. You are working through a routine the same way you do with the fight sequence or the dance sequences. And the most valuable stuff to us were the dance rehearsals for all kinds of reasons, for character creation as much as anything else. Because in the world, in the timeline, this is when people are allowed to get close. This is when you're allowed to flirt. Like, your mandated Tinder area is the dance floor. You know, you swipe right, you pick a dance card, and then you're allowed to get close, and you're allowed to be close to each other and look into each other's eyes and say and feel those secret things that you're not allowed to feel anywhere else. And so kind of once you've been there in those rehearsals, everything else is just kind of doing your job. You turn up to set, you say the lines, you do the choreography, and generally the steam and the chemistry, that's on the page, that's in the script, it's in the book. We just kind of get out of its way and make sure we've done our homework.
I know there's 8 books in Julia Quinton's series, the Bridgerton series, and each one's devoted to one of the siblings. Obviously, Simon has to play a biggest part in Daphne's, but I'm really hoping you guys get renewed for additional seasons so we can see more of this. So I want to know where you guys are at with that right now, and if there have been discussions about returning to Daphne.
Lady never tells, and I couldn't possibly tell you even if I knew. I give you kudos and points for asking, but you absolutely I can't give that answer. I just know that we're enjoying this season for the moment. We're looking forward to everyone else enjoying this season, and we'll worry about the future when the future comes.
I do have to ask you about the ending of the season, though, because it was beautiful and it was perfect. And to have the baby, and to also have Simon, want to start the tradition over again of starting with an A, to honor her family, and that was so cute.
Spoilers though, like when do we go out with this?
This will go out after. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. Yeah.
I'm taking your word for that. If I have been deceived, you will hear from me.
I won't fire you. It will not be I promise. So with the baby and where we see that going, I mean, obviously there's more there to mine for Simon and Daphne. I'm wondering if you think that it's possible that they would have as big a brood as the Bridgerton parents had, because that's a lot of kids. If you see them just as like a one-child household, or if Simon could handle 8 children.
I mean, I don't think there's much that Simon can handle. I'm going to back my boy, I mean, you're pulling me up on my homework here, because I'm pretty sure that Julia Quinn has written about the stuff in their future and how many kids they have, and I cannot rattle that off the top of my head. So I think the answer is out there, and the answer is buy the books and support the wonderful work that has spawned this show. And I totally know the answer, but I'm not going to tell you because why would I do your homework for you? You have so much fun ahead of you.
All right. Okay, again, spoiler, and don't worry, I'm dividing this between what you said is totally okay, because at the beginning we talked all romance, don't worry, all of that is kosher for preview, but the reveal of who Lady Whistledown is.
Oh yeah.
That was big, and I wanted to know.
Apparently is. I would say it's a very strong insinuation. Jump to conclusions.
You're not wrong. It was not. Was it
Like,
that we were just?
Definitely Whistledown. It was just a lot of kind of you know.
It was a lot of voiceover matched with certain images and heavy suggesting. Yeah. So are you saying there's a possibility that is not Lady Whistledown? Penelope is not.
Everything is possible. And that there are times when we stay exactly with what's going on in the books. There are times when we diverge. There are times when we mislead people slightly. That's very Whistledown thing to do. You know.
And then my last question is actually about Simon's relationship with Anthony, which preceded his relationship with Daphne. That's his best friend from growing up, and we know that Simon had a very interesting childhood, and he was kind of blocked off from everyone. So having a close friend like Anthony, he didn't have that many, and that relationship was really important to him. So I wanted to ask about dating your best friend's sister, which clearly Anthony takes as like a very weird thing, and he didn't want it to happen. And that's a little awkward for guys to deal with, no?
Well, I mean, I think the initial way of that Simon has for addressing that is that he's not, as far as he's concerned, actually dating his best friend's sister. He's pretending to date his best friend's sister and pretending to have feelings for her and pretending to kiss her in the garden. Oh, wait, no, that actually happened. And then it gets complicated because as far as he's concerned, he has this denial where nothing's actually going to happen or is happening. And then all of a sudden he surprises even himself with the fact that absolutely everything is happening. Cue drama.